Hi, I'm Rachel and welcome back to Auxhart Gardening. This is a follow-up video to the video I recorded about a year ago now about saving radish seeds. So when I recorded that video, I had no idea how many of you would end up watching it and how many of you would have really good follow-up questions. So today in this video, I want to address, not just for you who have asked the questions, but for everybody who comes after you, some of these really good questions that you guys had in response to that video. So the first question is, how long does it take for a radish to produce radish seeds? Well, the answer to that question isn't super straightforward, but I'm going to do my best. So I planted my radishes in January, and then I had seeds around June. And I was thinking maybe Google has a quick answer to this, but it turns out that it's a little more complicated than that. So since I planted in January, which is cold for me, my radishes did not directly go to seed. A lot of them spent a few days growing, and then eventually they went to seed when it started getting warmer. And so I would think if you planted your radishes immediately in the summer and it was warm as soon as you planted them, as long as it wasn't so hot that they couldn't germinate, then you could probably get them to go to seed immediately and have seeds faster than the 6 months that it took me. So the second question is, do you need to keep watering your radishes if you plan to harvest seeds from them? Because if you remember my other video, I mentioned how you need to let the seed pods dry out on the plant or take them off once they're mature and let them dry out. And so you might think maybe I should just stop watering my radishes if I want to get good dry seeds. And that's not necessarily true. So your plant is still going to need all the water it normally would need until those pods are fully mature and have mature seeds inside them. However, once you know that you have enough mature pods, because they're never all going to be mature at the same time, you're always going to have some that are a little behind. As long as you know that you have most of them are mature, you can stop watering at that point, and actually you might want to bring them in if it's going to rain, because once the plant has stopped actively growing those pods and it has deemed them mature, then you run a risk of mold on those pods once they get wet again. So to recap, yes, your plants need water until you have a fully mature pod, and after that you don't, and you actually want to avoid water, which is why I brought mine inside a covered place to dry out, because you do run that risk of mold if they get wet after that point. Question number 4 is, can I harvest the radish and the seeds? So can I plant my radish and wait until it produces seeds and then also eat the radish? So when a radish or any other plant goes to seed, it takes all of the available energy in the plant and puts it up into those seeds. And when we're talking about whether or not you can eat the radish root, the answer is yes, but all of the energy that the plant stored in the root is now being pushed up the plant into those seed pods. So you could eat those seed pods like I talk about in that other video that I have, but if you are saving for the seeds, then you can eat the radish root. It's just going to have a lot of that good tasty energy that it had stored previously in that root taken up into the seeds. So the answer is yes, you can eat that root, but it is not going to be very tasty. It's going to be bitter and it's going to be a little shriveled, and it's probably just not going to be a good time. All right, question 4 is, how many seeds per pod? So in my experience with the one type of radish that I grew, I got 5 to 8 seeds per pod, but this can vary among varieties. You could get more, you probably wouldn't get too many less than that, but I have seen some varieties that make a lot more than 8 seeds per pod. That's just something that you will find out when you get there. All right, question number 6 is, should I prune back some of the initial flowers to get the radish to produce more flowers and therefore more seeds? The answer is nope. You don't have to do that. The radishes in my video that you probably saw is not pruned. It just grew that way. If you let it go, it will keep producing more and more flower stalks as long as it has the energy to. So pruning it will probably only hurt that production. All right, last question is, what is a good way to remove the seeds? In my previous video, I did not address how difficult it can be to sit there and open every single pod by hand. And since then, I've learned about a couple of different methods that you could try for that. The first method is to take all of your dried stalks and kind of tie them together, hang them upside down with a big bag around them. And once the seed pods are fully mature, like in nature, they would just pop open and release the seeds. And so what you can do by putting this bag around it is capture the seeds as the plant naturally releases them. The only problem with this method is that not every pod opens, and so you wouldn't get all the seeds. But if you're harvesting them on like a large enough scale to where it's a problem to open them all by hand, then you probably will get enough seeds using this method anyway. And the second method I've seen is waiting until the pods are dry and crushing everything up and then sifting out the seeds from the pieces of plant matter. And that also seems to be effective for the people who have used it. I haven't tried that, but you will get a little bit more plant matter in your seeds than if you were to use the bag method or if you were to open them all by hand. But still, that doesn't really make a big difference, except in storing you might have a larger volume of stuff to store, especially if you're doing it on a big scale. That little bit of plant matter starts to matter, but for a lot of people who are saving on a home scale, that probably doesn't matter at all. All right, hopefully that answered a lot of your questions. Now, if you found that radish video first and then you found this one and you've never seen me before, you might notice that this garden is not the garden that was in the previous video. And that's because in the past year, actually in the past like 2 months, I've moved and set up this new garden. So you can go through and check out that move if you're interested. You could follow me on Instagram. I'm at Auxhart Gardening if you care to keep up with that. And I also am planning on making a lot of other seed saving videos this summer. So be sure to check back for those if you're into seed saving. Thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I wish you all happy gardening. Oh, this plane's always messing up my recordings. But most of the time, if you're gonna try and eat the radish, it's another plane.